Good Thursday morning, everybody. Beautiful Thursday morning here in Central Florida. Sunday of it, 67 degrees. It's noticeably cooler. And don't worry, we'll be back up there into the sweltering heat soon. A little bit of tropical depression out there. We'll see what happens with that. Hey, it's that time of year. Whew. Last night I got home and someone was in my bedroom that ought not be in my bedroom, so I just kept going. Some confrontations aren't worth it, and I go and I get to the kitchen and I unload my lunch pail. I have a couple dishes and then I have the ice pack to put back in the freezer, and I notice that the sink is half full of suds. So I know the sink is clogged because this person's MO is to dump half a thing of soap down each drain and run hot water and wonder why it's not clearing out. So I start running hot water, I start plunging the sink, and then he comes out and says, "The sink's not clogged. It's just got to give it time to drain." I said, "It's half full of dirty water and won't go down." "Well, if you say so." "Yeah, say so." "Whoa." I said, "I say so, Daniel. Goodbye." I'm like, what is wrong with this guy? Why would I be plunging the sink if it wasn't clogged? Riddle me that. I had taken it apart underneath and run a high pressure line through the line probably a month and a half, 2 months ago. And what I find is grease, food particles, and little bits of like SOS pads. So I went ahead and cleaned all that out, got it cleaned out all the way out, and put it back together. And you can't dump grease down the drain. And if you take a knife and push stuff through down the drain, it doesn't mean it's always going to go down, especially if you got grease down there. You know, we don't have a garbage disposal. But anywho, and no, I don't use the same plunger for my sink as the toilet. I have a special plunger underneath the kitchen sink for the sink. Lord help the individual that I catch using a toilet plunger in my sink. I don't care if you stuck that thing in a bucket of bleach for a month. Don't use the toilet plunger in my sink. I will do very naughty things with that plunger, I promise. Just saying. That's just disgusting. Anywho, that's my crazy mind. I try not to bark at anybody, and I try really hard not to have a negative reaction. But sometimes people just beg for it. Huh. We'll be okay. After that, all's good. Cleaned the counter, got things ready, and I started cooking the filling for homemade empanadas. Now, my children have different flavors, preferences, so I don't make them to my preference. I make them, and then they can choose their sauce, their hot sauce, or whatever that they want on it. And I made the filling a little different. I used ground beef. I used some onions. First, I chopped the onions real small and got them nice and happy in the skillet, and then threw the beef in there and got that all nice and happy and made sure it was really fine. And then I went ahead and threw a can of refried beans in there. I know potatoes is normal, but we didn't do potatoes. And then some light seasoning. Pulled that off the stove and let it sit to cool down because you really want it to cool down. And then I started working on the dough. But once I got the ingredients together before I made the dough, I put the fryer pot on the stove, put a gallon of fresh oil in there, threw the thermometer in there, got that going, and then made the dough. I use 3 cups of flour, and I use flour that I ground myself from einkorn berries, and those are just wheat berries if you don't know. And I do it's not really a coarse grind, but it's not real super fine. It's kind of in between. But anyhow, I think I had the mill on number 4 instead of 2. But anyhow, it's fine. So I sifted out 3 cups of flour, uh, teaspoon of teaspoon, yeah, teaspoon of baking powder and a half teaspoon of salt, and mix that together. And then I put 1 stick of butter cold in there, and I used a pastry cutter to get the butter all nice and happy and mixed in. And then I added a cup of warm water. I went ahead and probably ended up a cup and a splash, not quite a quarter, until it was real happy. Let it set for about, I don't know, 20 minutes. Then after it was all ready to go, I kneaded it on the counter, and I went ahead and broke it off into 12 even balls, and then I made my empanadas by rolling that out, um, putting the cooled filling in there. When the filling cools, I add the shredded cheese, and I use the taco blend this time, and then take that when the cheese is all, it won't melt at that point because it's cooled down. Then I put as much filling as I can get in that empanada, and then I go ahead and fry it. You put it in there, they fry up pretty quick. You know, the filling's already cooked. You just got to warm it up and cook the dough, and then they puff up nice. And oh, you know what? I brought some for lunch. I brought some for lunch. I can show you. Ah! So, all my Mexican friends, don't pick on me. So, they come out really nice, lightly brown. Of course, new oil, you're going to have lighter colors, right? But they came out good, and I served them with sour cream, your choice of hot sauce, with salsa. And my 12-year-old had 2, which says a lot. And she said, you can make these anytime you want. And then I made 12. I got 3 left over for today, 1 for breakfast and 2 for lunch. And came out pretty good. And you know, it didn't take longer than 30 minutes to make dinner. That's the filling and the making the dough and making the, you know, folding it over. I pinched it with a fork. You know, I don't have some fancy little machine to or press. I just crimp the edges with a fork, and then deep frying only takes a few minutes. I could do 2 at a time. I've got a really large fryer, but 2 at a time would seem to be perfect because it didn't drop the temperature of the grease too much, and they came out in just a few minutes each, and it was great. They were great. So try making it yourself. It's a lot healthier for you. I ground that einkorn flour myself, and that flour, we are particular about where we source it. Um, we prefer non-GMO, and we really prefer 100% certified organic. 100% means there's no junk on it. You're going to pay a little bit more, but you're not going to get any of those pesticides in your system from it. If you don't worry about that, don't worry about it. I don't really worry about it. I just prefer to limit the things going into my body that aren't made to go into my body. There you go. So, hey, y'all just keep doing better. Try to do the best you can. You can't be perfect, but just keep trying to improve. If you're stuck in a pattern of stagnation, get some help. If you're just letting life live you, get some help. And that help's not going to be at the bottom of the bottle, rolled up in paper, or at the bottom of a pipe. Ask somebody.